If I asked you to name like the most complex paradigm-shifting invention of the 21st century, you might say neural implants or, I don't know, artificial intelligence.
Right, or quantum computing, something massive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't say a bathroom air freshener. But today, you've sent us a document for this deep dive that, well, it forces us to combine the absolute bleeding edge of biotechnology with, like, the kind of cheap plastic pine tree you hang from a rearview mirror.
It really does. And I mean, the wildest part is that this entire technological revolution we're about to discuss is contained within a document that is exactly 40 words long.
40 words, 3 sentences. That's literally our entire source material today.
Yeah, it's a brilliant exercise in density because we are essentially doing a forensic breakdown of a text that, masquerades as just disposable humor.
Just a cheap joke, really.
Right. But it is actually a highly compressed piece of linguistic and engineering theory. I mean, it requires us to look at biology, neurotechnology, and the economics of consumer adoption just to understand the mechanics of the narrative here.
Okay, let's unpack this,
Okay.
because I need to read the text you sent us exactly as it appears in the source material, starting with the title. So, quote, "Aromatic cognition, the logic of olfactory innovation. I invented a thought-controlled air freshener. My wife told me it was dumb, but it has sense when you think about it," unquote.
There it is.
That is the entirety of the text. I mean, it's a dad joke.
Oh, absolutely, dad joke.
But it is wearing the most serious academic disguise I had ever seen.
Yeah, that disguise is doing a lot of heavy lifting right from the jump. Let's look at the anatomical reality behind that title, aromatic cognition.
The lofty, peer-reviewed sounding title.
Right, because the author isn't just throwing large words together to sound smart. They're actually referencing a very specific, hardwired biological mechanism. I mean, cognition is obviously the mental process of acquiring knowledge, right, through thought.
Thinking.
And aromatic obviously refers to scent. But biologically, smell is actually the most cognitive of all our senses. It's the only sense that completely bypasses the thalamus.
Oh, right. The thalamus being like the brain's sensory switchboard.
Correct. So when you see something or hear something or touch something, those signals go to the thalamus first. And then the thalamus routes them to the appropriate processing centers in the cerebral cortex.
Like a relay station.
Exactly, a relay station. But your olfactory system completely skips that relay. Scent molecules hit the receptors in your nose, and those receptors send signals directly to the olfactory bulb.
Just straight in.
Straight in, which has direct neural synapses connected straight into the amygdala and the hippocampus.
Which are the emotional and memory centers of the brain, which totally explains why catching a whiff of, like, a specific brand of sunscreen can instantly transport you back to a childhood vacation with, startling, vivid clarity.
Oh, 100%. The scent is physically wired into your memory and cognitive processing centers in a way that sight and sound simply aren't.
Wow. So the biological reality actually makes the title Aromatic Cognition a perfectly valid scientific premise.
It does. The author establishes this rigorous framework, practically promising a paradigm-shifting neurological paper. And
then they immediately subvert it with a massive tonal whiplash in the very first line. I mean, I invented a thought-controlled air freshener.
Yeah, total whiplash.
It's like seeing a tuxedo on a clown. The title is The Tuxedo, right? It's formal, tailored, demanding respect. And that first sentence is the clown spinning around with a skirt flower on his lapel.
That's a great way to put it.
But the weird thing is, if you look at it, the squirt flower is actually a functioning, state-of-the-art piece of neurotechnology. I mean, if we take that first line completely literally as a mechanical device that now exists in the world, the engineering required to build it is just staggering.
Oh, it's mind-boggling.
Okay.
Because to have a thought-controlled anything, you are relying on a brain-computer interface, or a BCI.
Right.
And this is the absolute frontier of current research. You have to translate the electrochemical signals of the human brain into an actionable digital command.
Which is not easy.
Not at all. To do that without, drilling into the skull, you were looking at non-invasive EEG sensors, electroencephalography. You're placing electrodes on the scalp to read the microscopic voltage fluctuations created when millions of neurons fire simultaneously.
So it's essentially like having a universal remote, but instead of using infrared light to change the channel, it uses your brain's electrical exhaust.
Yes. That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. But the major problem with that electrical exhaust is the signal-to-noise ratio.
Because there's a lot going on up there.
Exactly. It is incredibly noisy. You are dealing with what engineers call the cocktail party problem of brainwaves.
Oh, like trying to hear one voice in a crowded room?
Precisely. The BCI algorithm is trying to listen to one specific conversation, which in this case is the command to release a burst of lavender scent in a stadium full of screaming fans.
Right, because the sensors are picking up your heartbeat, your visual processing of the room, your anxiety about an upcoming meeting.
Your motor commands, keeping your posture upright. Everything.
Yeah, if you are listening to this deep dive right now, try it. Just try to isolate a specific thought to trigger a specific smell. Try to think purely of the command lavender without visualizing the color purple or remembering a garden or getting distracted by the sound of my voice.
Nearly impossible.
It is. He suddenly realized just how chaotic and loud the human brain actually is.
Right, so the computing power required to filter out that noise, isolate the specific synaptic pattern for activate air freshener, and then translate that into a binary command to heat up a scented oil pad. It's immense.
You need some serious hardware.
You would need machine learning algorithms trained extensively on the specific user's neural topography.
Which makes the application of this technology utterly baffling. I mean, you have a BCI capable of filtering the chaos of human consciousness.
A literal miracle of science.
Yeah. This is the kind of tech that allows paralyzed patients to control robotic limbs or navigate computer screens with their minds. It's a monumental breakthrough in human empowerment. And our inventor looks at this world-changing potential and decides to use it to make the living room smell like synthetic pine needles.
Without having to get off the couch.
Right. It's so
It
ridiculous.
seems trivial, but, a BCI air freshener actually introduces a massive user experience revelation.
Really? How so?
Well, seamless integration into the most boring, mundane aspects of daily life is the final, mature stage of any technological revolution. I mean, look at the smartphone. It started as a military and corporate communication tool.
And now we use it to play games while waiting for the bus.
Exactly.
Okay, I see the argument for the democratization of tech, I do. But I still think a telekinetic Glade plugin is an absolute UX nightmare.
Oh, without a doubt.
If the machine requires active cognitive effort to function, you've just replaced a simple physical action like pushing a button or plugging something into a wall with a highly taxing mental chore. Who actually wants this?
Nobody wants it. And that glaring usability flaw naturally triggers the friction in the very next line of the text.
Quote, "My wife told me it was dumb."
Right. What's fascinating here is that the wife serves a vital function in this narrative. She represents the economic reality of consumer adoption.
Grounded reality check.
Yes. In the technology sector, there is a framework called the Gartner Hype Cycle, which tracks the life cycle of new technologies. It starts with the technology trigger, shoots up to the peak of inflated expectations, and then inevitably crashes down into what they call the trough of disillusionment.
The trough of disillusionment, that's the phase where everyone realizes the shiny new invention is either too expensive, too complicated, or just incredibly impractical for everyday life.
Precisely. The wife in this narrative is the embodiment of the trough of disillusionment.
Oh, I love that.
Right. Because the inventor is riding the peak of inflated expectations. He sees the staggering BCI technology he has created. He sees the majesty of the engineering.
But the wife looks at the actual utility of the device in her living room.
Yes. She assesses the immense cognitive load required just to freshen the air and correctly identifies that the consumer application of this miracle technology is, well, in her words, dumb.
She is standing in for you, the skeptical listener. She completely grounds this absurd science fiction premise in a highly relatable domestic reality. I mean, it's a brilliant twist on the classic misunderstood genius trope.
Oh, absolutely.
Usually, the visionary scientist is standing in front of a tribunal of angry academics or a board of wealthy investors who are rejecting their life's work. But here, the grand arena of scientific judgment is just a living room couch.
Yeah. And the hostile scientific community is just a spouse pointing out a glaring product-market fit problem.
Exactly.
And the domestic friction is structurally vital. I mean, without the wife's rejection, the narrative stalls entirely. Her skepticism demands a defense.
The inventor is backed into a corner.
Right. He has deployed the most advanced neurotechnology in human history for a completely frivolous task, and now he has to justify its existence.
Which brings us to the linguistic masterpiece of the final line, the inventor's grand defense. Quote, "But it makes sense when you think about it."
Yeah, this requires a deep deconstruction because those 9 words are functioning on multiple parallel tracks simultaneously.
Let's get into it.
Let's look at the phonetic pivot first. The phrase makes sense, spelled S-C-E-N-T-S, meaning the production of odors, is the exact auditory homophone for the phrase make sense.
Spelled S-E-N-S-E, meaning logical or reasonable.
Exactly. To the human ear, they sound identical. The auditory processing center in the brain hears the exact same phonemes, but the context forces the listener to map two entirely different semantic meanings onto that single sound.
Which is wild.
The author uses that phonetic overlap to build a bridge. On a figurative conversational level, the inventor is using a very common idiom. When you tell someone, hey, it makes sense when you think about it, you are inviting them to ponder the context.
You're saying if you reflect on this initially confusing concept, you'll see the underlying logic.
Yes, he is offering a rational defense against his wife's claim that the invention is dumb.
Okay, but I want to push back on the inventor's strategy here for a second. If you have built a machine that literally interfaces with human consciousness, and your defense of it relies entirely on a verbal pun, haven't you failed at basic communication?
Whoa.
I mean, if the device is so brilliant, its utility should be self-evident, right? Having to explain the joke to your wife feels like a massive admission of defeat.
It would be a defeat if it were only a pun. But it's not just a conversational idiom.
Okay.
We have to remember the literal mechanics established in the first line. It is a thought-controlled air freshener.
Right.
Based on the established physics of this fictional world, the machine only produces odors when the user engages in the physical act of cognition.
Oh, wow. Wait, so the phrase isn't just a figurative defense. It is the literal technical instruction manual for how the device operates.
Yes.
It dispenses the aroma when you think about it.
Exactly. If you apply thought to the device applies scent to the room. The BCI translates the mental effort into an olfactory output.
It makes sense when you think about it. That is incredible. The colloquial justification and the literal mechanical reality collapse into the exact same sentence.
They do. And if we map this final line all the way back up to the very top of the text, it completely synthesizes the entire 40-word document. It perfectly pays off that lofty academic title we started with.
Aromatic cognition.
Yes.
Because it proves its own title. Cognition is the act of thinking. Aromatic is the production of scent. It makes sense when you think about it is the exact literal translation of aromatic cognition.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
The scientific promise made at the very beginning is fulfilled by the mechanics of the punchline at the very end.
The clown takes off the squirt flower, and underneath, the tuxedo was perfectly tailored the entire time.
Exactly.
The elegance of that structure is really the main takeaway here. We often dismiss short-form humor or wordplay as, low effort.
Just cheap dad joke.
Right. But this text proves that even the silliest humor requires an airtight, rigorous internal logic to actually function properly. I mean, if you change a single parameter, if the device is voice-controlled instead of thought-controlled, or if it's a thought-controlled toaster instead of an air freshener, the entire architecture collapses.
It doesn't work.
The engineering of the joke must be just as flawless as the engineering of the fictional brain-computer interface it describes.
It really changes how you view language. A pun isn't just a cheap laugh, it's a stress test of semantic and phonetic boundaries.
Absolutely.
You provided us with 3 sentences today, just
Yeah.
40 words, and hidden inside them was a masterclass in narrative tension, biological realities, and technological hype cycles.
It's been quite the ride.
Which leaves you with a final thought to mull over long after we wrap this deep dive up. We spent all this time dissecting how this text operates on 2 parallel tracks, the figurative conversation with the skeptical spouse and the literal function of the neuromachine. Does the ultimate perfection of a pun lie in its ability to be simultaneously completely figurative and 100% physically literal at the exact same time? Is that the holy grail of wordplay? When the metaphor and the machine become completely indistinguishable from one another, next time a joke makes you roll your eyes, maybe look a little closer at the blueprints.